Welcome to River City Plus, the show after the show, and we're doing things different today. I got my man Les DeMerle, jazz drummer extraordinaire, who has a long history of playing with some of the greats in jazz and other musical formats. But we talked earlier because he's here. They've got a big band show for Valentine's Day coming up, and we talked about that. But I just wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive because people have heard like little snippets of what you're about. But I mean, Buddy Guy,
Buddy Rich.
Buddy Rich. I mean, just running through the names that you've played with. I mean, people are gonna be like, "Wait, what?" Yeah. So, all right. First off, Les is a jazz drummer extraordinaire. I know I've already said that. So, Les, just give us a little background about you.
Oh, man. Thank you, Rance. Well, I started playing drums very young. I was 8 years old. And my teacher was a guy named Bob Livingston in New York. And he was a jazz musician, you know. So when he first told me about drumming, after I learned the basics, like the drum rudiments, I started to listen to the music that he was inspiring me to listen to. And it was jazz music, you know. Count Basie, Duke Ellington, Harry James, Benny Goodman, Ray Charles. And then I got into blues and then Latin music, you know. So I was brought up with a teacher that exposed me to the right stuff and put me in the right direction, you know.
When you started playing drums, did you anticipate? I mean, like, what was it? Because, like, I mean, I started playing my guitar. I was listening to, like, kind of heavier genre. That was kind of my. Yeah. So what inspired you to pick up the drums?
Well, you know, I think drummers are kind of born natural, and I was always tapping on things, picking up knives and forks, playing with rhythms. My folks were not musicians, by the way. My dad was a plumbing and heating contractor, you know, and I'm a junior. So when the phone used to ring, my mother would say, "Do you want?" They'd say, "Is Les there?" And she'd say, "You want the plumber or the drummer?" You know,
like, that sense of humor. I see where it came from.
Yeah. And she was a tough New York cookie too, you know. But even though they weren't musicians, they really dug music, you know, and they danced and always had music playing around our apartment in Brooklyn. So I was, you know, bit by the bug very young, you know. And then when I wanted drum lessons, my folks enrolled me with Allegro Music, which is a place we had moved out to Middle Village, Long Island, and Bob Livingston was my teacher. And then after about 6 years of really getting into the basics of drumming, then he told my folks, he said, "You know, we're practicing to these records by Count Basie and Lionel Hampton." He said, "Why don't you take Les into Manhattan where these bands are playing so he can not only hear them on record, but see them live," you know. So that was a big thing for me. When I was 16, I went to see Lionel Hampton, and I wore a nice suit and tie, dressed up to go to a nightclub with my father, you know. And in the first break, my father runs up to Hamp, and he asks him a question. He comes back, and I said, "What did you do? You went up to Lionel Hampton. What did you say?" He said, "I asked him if you could sit in." And I said, "You did what?" You know, he said, "Yeah, man, I asked him if you could play." I said, "Well, what did he say?" My dad said, "No." You know, no.
I was thinking this is the break.
Yeah. So but Hamp knew at that point I was a young kid in the audience, Rance, and really into the music. And it was called the Metropole Cafe, which is very close to, where the wall is here in the studio is where the band was. So the hair on the back of my neck was just, bow,
super intimate.
Bow, man, whoa, a big band. Like one thing to hear it on a record, but when you got all the brass coming at you, you know. So Hamp is watching me during the second set, and he's noticing I'm scat singing to all these riffs because I knew the arrangements, you know. So my father goes up to him again, and he says, "Hamp, is there any way that you can let the kid sit in? If you do, I'll buy the whole 17-piece orchestra a drink," you know. So Hamp says, "Man, you really set on this kid playing with me tonight." He said, "I'll tell you what, Pops, at 2 o'clock in the morning, my last tune, I'll let Les play one tune, you know." So 2 o'clock in the morning, there were maybe 60 people in the joint, you know. But I got up there and I played Flying Home, and I played all the licks, that, you know. And he came over afterwards and he asked me for my number. He said, "If we ever need a sub in the band, I'm going to call you, and maybe you could work a weekend with us or so." So I got a gig, you know.
Nice.
So it worked out well, you know.
See, that's so cool that your dad was like, "My kid is good. You need to give him a shot. Give him a little listen."
Yeah.
So,
and my mom too. Brad.
Yeah,
both of them were really behind us, and my brother.
Does he play too?
He was a guitar player at the time, but he wasn't as serious about it as I was. You know, he actually went into my dad's profession.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you built a career, like I said, playing. You've got multiple albums and stuff like that. Traveled the world in many different ways. But we met when we first started. I first got here with River City Live because you have launched the Amelia Island Jazz Festival.
Yes.
So first off, how did Amelia Island become home?
Okay. Well, Bonnie and I got together, my beautiful wife, Bonnie Isel, while I was on the road with Wayne Newton. He's a big name singer, and I was playing in Vegas a lot.
I know Wayne Newton.
You know, so I was going through Chicago, and I love to jam after the gigs. So in this hotel we were staying at, I jammed with the lounge group, and an agent heard me. He came up to me, he said, "Are you the same Les DeMerle that's in all the drum books?" I said, "Yeah, that's me. I wrote the books to Jazz Rock Fusion Volume 1 and 2, which are big sellers, you know." He said, if after Wayne's job, if you want to stay in Chicago, I could offer you a 16-week supper club gig. And Wayne was going to do that movie Las Vegas Vacation, which he's very, very famous for, with Chevy Chase. So I said, okay. And then I hired Bonnie, you know. And once I hired Bonnie from a jazz band that was mostly instrumental, now I had her, which is a great vocalist in front. And it was more commercial, you know, because the lyrics and the singers are actually easier to sell, so to speak, to agents and nightclubs, you know, and concerts. So we started to hone our craft together, work together. And then eventually we started to play South Florida, way down in Naples, Florida, at the Ritz-Carlton there. After we played Atlantic City, we were headlining at Caesars in Atlantic City. The general manager there asked if we would be the house band at Amelia Island because they were going to open up the Ritz-Carlton. And we didn't even know where Amelia Island was. I thought it was in Hawaii or someplace, some island, you know. So he said, no, on the way back to Chicago, you know, get off of 95 and you'll see exit 373 and go to Amelia Island. You'll see they're just building the hotel, but if you want, we'll sign your contracts a year at a time, and you'll be the house band, you know, and you would do a big band and a trio and play jazz in the lounge. I said, man, this is exactly what the doctor ordered, you know. So Bon and I got off, and we that's what brought us to Amelia Island, you know, to open the Ritz. For 10 years, Rance, we were the house band there until 9/11 happened. When 9/11 happened, of course, the world changed, the budgets got cut, and then we said, okay, we're going to look into cruise contracts. We'll play the jazz clubs, but we won't have this steady job on Amelia anymore. So what we'll do is we'll start a jazz festival. I said, Bon, I'd really like to start a jazz festival, bring the greatest musicians in the world here. That's how it started.
So with the Jazz Festival, he's brought some greats. I've been up there, been able to come up and host and meet some of these, like Nestor Torres, Manhattan Transfer, celebrated their 50th anniversary, and it was like one of their final shows before they retired.
Six before they retired.
You know, so so the Jazz Festival in its own right, and it's definitely expanded because when we first hung out, it was like at the golf club. And now it's at the Courtyard, Spring Hill Suites Courtyard on Amelia Island. But with that, so people are like, okay, so we're going to go hear some great music, some jazz festival. But it's not it's a money-making venture in the fact that Les and Bonnie are paying it forward. They've created a scholarship fund to make sure that jazz lives on with the youth today. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, the scholarship fund, Rance, is awarded every year to a young musician. They're usually about 18 years old, and they're right out of high school, and they want to pursue jazz in college. So we give them a scholarship every year, and if they keep their grades up, they get it for 4 years, you know, while they're in college. And so we don't have a scholarship recipient yet this year, but I'm auditioning a bunch of great players this week, as a matter of fact. And then last year, as you know, we had Giovanni Martinez, great trumpet player who hosted the jams. And that's the other thing too. Like these kids, you know, they're 18 years old. They've already started to work professional gigs, most of them, and then I give them the opportunity to jam with our headliners, you know, like Longinu Parsons, for instance, a great trumpet player, who came in and jammed with the trumpet player who was Giovanni Martinez, the 2023 scholarship winner, and that just raises the bar, you know, and the kids get excited, and it's good for us, you know, the pros, to see and keep a pulse on what they're into, what they're listening to. And what's really cool is that if you play jazz, you have to go back to the traditions. So no matter how young they are, you have to know about Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, and then you get more modern. You go through Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, and then you get into the fusion players of today, you know, and the hottest young player that's out there, you know. There's a singer out there now who's 23 years old who got Artist of the Year. Her name is Samara Joy, and she is just an amazing, amazing artist. She's got to be reincarnated because she sounds like Sarah Vaughan, you know. I mean, she's 23, and she's one of a great example. She won the Sarah Vaughan vocal competitions, and just is #1 in all the polls in Downbeat this year. Jazz vocalist, jazz artist of the year, jazz album of the year, the whole thing.
And so she came out of here?
No, she is from Philly, I believe.
Oh, but just youngster making
really making it big.
So one name that sticks out to me is I think I met him before I knew he was your scholarship, but it was a kid named Skylar. He was a saxophonist.
Skylar Nolan.
And I still follow him, and he went to UNF, and he was there for like a year and a half, and then next thing I know, he's at Stanford, and then a few years after that, he's in New York gigging with people, and I'm like, this kid is living his best life. And it's a jump off point for young musicians, jazz musicians. They get an opportunity to do their thing, and they get a chance to be seen and shine. But when it comes to the pros, is it kind of inspirational to you, or make you guys feel validated when you've got these young kids that are so into the same music that you are, and that they are invested in the history and that kind of thing?
Yes. Oh, yes. That's you know, makes your heart go like that. You know, it's just so cool. And these kids, and you know, Bonnie and I, Brands, to be honest with you, we didn't have children because we were always working on the road. You know, so these guys are kind of like our kids. You know, we keep tabs on them, and we you know, when we try to guide them in the right direction. And when I pick up like Downbeat magazine, which is the jazz musician's Bible, that we read that every month, you know, see what's going on, and I see some of our scholarship winners. Oh, he's got a new record out, you know, or he's on tour with Sting or something. You know, I mean, really big names. These guys have just really done their homework, and they're doing what I did when I was their age. They're out there on the road and promoting it, and hopefully when they get older, they'll pay it forward too.
Love it. Also, Les teaches on the side when he's got some downtime, which is very rare. But even when during the Jazz Festival week, he'll go to different schools. He'll show some kids some techniques and that kind of thing. But the Jazz Festival weekend brunch festival, Valentine's Day. Go ahead. We've got the image on the screen. Break that down.
Great. So this is going to be Saturday, February 10th. It's going to be at the Courtyard Spring Hill Suites up in Amelia Island. It's the full Les DeMerle Orchestra, 15-piece big band. I'm going to have some of the ringers with me, like Dr. Bill Prince on lead alto. I've got Clarence Hines from UNF, the head of the jazz department, on trombone. Dennis Marks will be with me playing bass. And in the trumpet section, we're going to feature Paul Tafoya, a new musician from New York who just moved to Jacksonville, playing all the Harry James parts. And of course, Bonnie will be singing. Bonnie Eisel will be singing her wonderful vocals. And we're going to debut a bunch of brand new arrangements that night. Now, it's a dinner dance gala, and it's from 7 to 10. There's a meet and greet the musicians at 6:30, and then the hotel is offering an overnight package. So if you want to come for the big band bash, stay overnight, and then make the jazz brunch on Sunday, it's all within a package that they're offering, Spring Hill Suites. And so it's Sunday for the jazz brunch. I'm going to use a jazz quintet, and so it's a whole weekend of jazz, and it's all about the proceeds going to the scholarship foundation that we've developed for the Amelia Island Jazz Festival.
So we're going to do a deeper dive on some of the other events coming up with the Amelia Island Jazz Festival and Les. So if you want to get those tickets for this week or Valentine's weekend, keep tabs on anything else going on, go to AmeliaIslandJazzFestival.com. Unfortunately, we don't have time for a lesson. So Jana has the mad skills. We saw her doing a little bit. But Les, we're going to play it out. Go ahead and let them go. I'm going to move the mic so we don't blow them out.
Okay, I'm going to play some brushes to go out, Brance, okay?
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, buddy.
What?